Today, we are taking a look at an interesting video. Well, interesting would be one way to put it, or just wrong. This video is about how Mary Sues are fun by Lily and Mikaila Orchard. Is this not a paradox? A similar style of video might be why plot holes are good, or that the MCU is the strongest it's ever been. One would think that given the general attitudes toward Mary Sues, and how they are generally regarded as poor examples of writing, people would not be willing to defend such a practice. I guess I was wrong. Oh god, what am I doing? For this response, I will be going over the relevant parts of the video, but not the whole thing. So I suggest you watch the full video for the full context.
But now people are catching wise to the notion that Mary Sue is jargon, and so dickheads need a new word for woman bad, and they saw a few online left YouTubers making vague gargle sounds about girl boss and said, "That'll work." And there it went. Girl boss became the new word for Mary Sues because of misogynistic little bitches stealing bad rhetoric from political YouTubers.
Okay, we immediately begin with a lie. The idea of a Mary Sue was not proven to be incorrect, and the idea that the people went on to find a different word after they had lost the argument is also incorrect. Words have specific meanings. If we take a look at Mary Sue, there are a lot of requirements. She is beautiful, extremely talented in most or all areas, has no real or pertinent character flaws, everybody likes her, strong with no training, overshines all characters, and the plot and world seem to warp around her. The thing is, though, the strict definition of a Mary Sue is pretty hard to find within mainstream media. Even the worst writers usually don't end up hitting all of these tropes, which is why Rey became such a flashpoint. The idea of creating a character and hitting every single one of these, or the majority of these requirements, is pretty rare. Even the worst writers will end up avoiding a character who everybody loves, or will include a 2-second training montage to argue that there was in fact organic growth. However, pretty soon, there were a batch of new characters. These characters did not hit all the requirements of a Mary Sue, thus calling them ones would be inaccurate, meaning that if the stance was taken, it would be easily disproved. All one had to do is point out a few missing characteristics and then go on to call you stupid. These characters may not have been Mary Sues in the traditional sense, but they were still poorly written and annoying. They were ridiculously strong, hard-headed, and sometimes assholes who faced no consequences, but were actually often praised for their boneheaded decisions. The characters were just as annoying, and nobody liked them. Thus was born a new definition, the girl boss. The new term was not created because the term Mary Sue was proven to just be a useless buzzword by those who did not want any strong women in their stories. It was created to address a new type of character popping up in the modern cultural zeitgeist, which was left uncaptured by the term Mary Sue. So this is a false statement from the get-go.
Star Wars was what really shined a light onto it, obviously with Rey, but it actually goes all the way back to Knights of the Old Republic too.
Now, I've never played Star Wars KOTOR, which is used as an example here. So, if a valid point has been made, I don't really know. And I hate turn-based combat, so I'm not going to play it. But when crafting a video game, which usually ends up being a power fantasy or some sort of narrative where you just cut through hordes of enemies, it's going to be different from your mainline story in a Star Wars film or many films in general. So that's something to take note here.
Really look at it, Rey isn't called a Mary Sue because she beat up some loser and can fix a car. She's called a Mary Sue because she outshines the only white guy in the cast. They wanted the movie to be about something else.
Oh god. People are not upset that Rey beat the only white guy or outshined him. It doesn't matter what race Kylo is. It doesn't matter if he's a man or a woman. I mean, motherfucker, Kylo could be an alien if he wanted. The core issue still stands, which is the descendant of one of the most powerful Force users, who has been trained for years by one of the strongest Jedi, lost to fucking Rey, her first time holding a lightsaber. It fundamentally goes against any understanding one would have about the Star Wars universe. I mean, which other Sith would this apply to? Are you really telling me that if Darth Maul got shot in the gut, and then we gave some Force user a lightsaber who had never held one before, that the Force user with no training would even remotely stand a chance? I don't care what potential the individual has, it's going to be a loss. But because it was Rey, and she's a Mary Sue, she won. That's it.
And that's why trying to argue what X character isn't a Mary Sue is a waste of time.
Ah yes, don't actually tackle the arguments against these chuds, build a straw man, call them every name under the book, and claim victory.
You could make a detailed analysis for why, say, Captain Marvel isn't an overpowered Mary Sue, but you're making a critical mistake because that's not what the unshaven douchebag is actually angry about. See, to hear people talk, the idea of a character being hyper-competent, always right, and who just kicks all kinds of ass is just objectively bad writing because good characters struggle and earn everything and yada yada yakety schmackety. And that's bullshit, and I know that's bullshit, and you know that's bullshit because hyper-competent Mary Sues are fucking fun.
You really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Oh no, we're using John McClane? Really? This is the example? This is what we will do. We shall let her provide all the examples and then tackle each one of them at the end.
Turn off the light show and prove to me you can beat me without... That was for Thane, you son of a bitch!
But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
Let's see. Satellite hijacking, attempted murder, terrorism, and oh yes, speeding. I'm gonna have to ask the boys to pull over. This is not gonna look good come promotion time.
And of course, my personal favorite.
Sorry for this.
John McClane is already established to be a cop, meaning that when it comes to handling firearms and dealing with threats, he is going to have some level of experience.
It's okay, I'm a cop. Trust me. I've been doing this for 11 years.
The real story of John McClane is that he didn't waltz around the building defeating everyone with ease. He constantly struggled, had to figure out different approaches to problems, and sustained heavy injuries along the way, along with having some help from the police. It is precisely in later iterations where the character becomes the unkillable, hyper-competent character you are talking about. Ironically, this is when the franchise faced huge amounts of criticism. It had lost touch with the character's roots, and John became something akin to Rey. Probably the worst example to choose, but we can keep going. Darth Vader is not the main character in the original trilogy. Obviously, having an overpowered villain who seems unkillable is going to hold a different place in the narrative than your main protagonist. A few more examples go on to show action heroes. And this is where the chief error is made, which is comparing two types of film, two different styles of narrative, and complaining that one is not like the other. Clearly, when mapping out a story, one would take a different approach when creating a 2-hour contained straight action film versus a 3-movie-long epic fantasy saga set within an established universe. Action films usually start off with a character already established as the badass, containing a set of skills from the very beginning, usually explained by a few sentences of dialogue.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you.
Only one thing fighting for order in the chaos. The men and women of the Hall of Justice. Juries. Executioners. Judges.
That fucking
is John Wick. We called him Baba Yaga.
The boogeyman?
Well, John wasn't exactly the boogeyman. He was the one you sent to kill the fucking boogeyman. I once saw him kill 3 men in a bar. With a pencil. With a fucking pencil.
Thus, the movie doesn't have to spend significant time explaining and showing a whole backstory. They can just jump to the action immediately. Rey is not established to be much of anything, outside of a resourceful scrapper. She can have the traits that would come from that, but she's not established to be a Jedi. In a universe where it's established that becoming a lightsaber-wielding badass takes a considerable amount of time, effort, and talent. If Rey was established to be a Jedi Master or Knight from the start, then the argument stands, but she wasn't. Not to mention the chief issue, which is that the majority of enjoyment and engagement comes from 2 separate places when comparing these 2 styles of film. Where in a straight action movie, like many of the examples provided, the majority of the engagement comes from the action itself, comes from the actual fighting, in which a major amount of the runtime is dedicated and can be dedicated to that. But in a 3-episode overarching saga, in which sometimes you might get 1 lightsaber fight per episode, that is not the case. In fact, for the majority of time, you're not going to see Rey fighting with her lightsaber against Kylo, which means that the films are going to have to find other things to fill that time. When it came to Star Wars, seeing the steady character growth over time, the various character arcs, and the world building were the draw. At the end of the day, it's not actually the sick lightsaber fights that made Star Wars into the franchise it is today. It was the world, the characters, and their journey. But if Rey just starts defeating the villain from the beginning of the story all the way to the end, you don't get any of that, do you? Especially with the poor excuse of choreography the sequels call action. Fan films have better choreography than what ended up going into the sequels. That's when you know you messed up. If the sequels were 2-hour films where Rey starts at the bottom of the building and then has to make her way to the top of the building, all while cutting down goon after goon, then yeah, seeing her go absolutely feral, as you put it, would be fun and would fit. But that's not what Star Wars is. In a scenario like John Wick, you're not really there for the character arc. It's not as if we see his training or much of his backstory, outside of the few hints we do get. But what you're there to see is the action itself. That is what puts the butts in seats. So a lot of time and effort is spent making the action sequences as awesome as they can be. As well as the fact that's what most of the film is. John Wick killing people with brief moments in between. Versus the sequels that may have 2 lightsaber fights with shitty choreography, akin more to 2 aggressively drunk people stumbling all over the place, committing 100% to every strike. As for the rest of the examples, I'm not familiar with.
Watching someone cathartically destroy someone will never not be fun. This is something we've been enjoying for decades as escapism, but
She gets pretty close to realizing this, but then seemingly zooms past it.
now we live in Darkest Timeline 2023, where not only are you going to have a greasy bearded fuck yelling about how this is somehow an infection of society, you'll also get an equally greasy bearded fuck yelling about how this is capitalism polluting feminism.
I don't care about any of this.
It's not as if in a post-capitalist society there would be less girl boss movies. There would probably be more without big studios getting cranky about making movies for and by women. People often forget this, but it's the big studios that keep pushing white men as the default majority. Without the studios keeping their hands on the scales, you'd see more of that thing you hate, not less, you joyless little bitch.
I mean, this is pretty funny. She was so confident and so wrong. Yeah, screw all those OG Avengers. What the audience really wants to see are these new ones. Additionally, it's the studio themselves, by the way, who went in this direction.
We need to Mary Sue harder.
You serious?
No, we don't. We don't need to Mary Sue harder.
Solo film, she has a lot more personality. She's angrier, she's sarcastic.
We wake up with Captain Marvel, or, well, Veers, or, well, I mean, her name is Carol Danvers, but I think it'll be more suitable for this assessment to simply refer to her as Plank.
She breaks a guy's hand and robs him when he tells her to smile. It's fucking great. Take it!
What, no smile?
You know there's a reason Marvel didn't include this in the theatrical release, right? The idea of your superhero committing assault and burglary because the guy was being a little bit of a jerk and touched your map? You reverse the roles, the man would be considered a straight-up supervillain.
She's gone full Force Fury and ruthlessly tears Kylo Ren apart. By the end of the fight, she's practically pacing around him like Darth Maul. She's gone feral and gives no shits and just bullies this wannabe school shooter.
I already addressed why this doesn't work.
Kept that going with her throughout the other movies, she would have been fucking amazing. We had the hero's journey. We had the hero's fall. We could have had the hero's no-holds-barred beatdown.
Wait, one of those things is not like the other. We have mustard, we have ketchup, and now we have the all-new V12 218 miles per hour LaFerrari. No, sorry.
They pivoted away from that and pulled back on Rey's character and spent the next movie burying her in reasons not to pop Space Elliot Rogers' head like a grape.
Wait, so if Snoke dies in The Last Jedi, and Rey could just kill Kylo in the same movie, how is the rest of the trilogy supposed to progress? I guess it just doesn't.
You can shoot lightning from your fucking fingertips, and you're angsting about that? Look, you just backflipped over a starship like it was nothing. Lady, you're fucking cool. Every time she shows up, she should have Devil May Cry music backing her. Make an edit of that, Mikaila will love it.
I am the storm that is approaching.
I think at this point, it's safe to say that this isn't anything serious. Rather, this is really not an argument for any type of serious character writing that you and I might disagree with. This is simply someone's internal masturbatory fantasy made canon. Fan fiction, if you will. Which kind of brings us back full circle. But the song is pretty fire.
Luke shows up in Return of the Jedi in full goth, uses the dark side to choke a guy, threatens Jabba, kills his pet, threatens him again, and then for good measure does this! You dramatic little bitch!
Yeah, but Luke didn't start off by doing this. This is the third film in the trilogy, not to mention just conveniently skipping over the training he did, plus not to mention the absolute beating he took in the previous film. Obviously, if you just focus on the end of the journey, you can portray the narrative you want, but it's straight up misleading.
Anakin Skywalker is the fucking king of swagger! Dude shows up as a 9-year-old like, yeah, I can build an engine out of garbage, yeah, I can win a deadly race that kills even adults, yeah, I can take out a droid control ship, and he just keeps doing shit like that for the rest of his damn life!
Yes, he had training from a kid all the way to a young adult, in between the movies. Plus, I don't think most people liked Kid Anakin for these very reasons you're touting.
I think the problem with some of these characters is that too much time is spent justifying the fact that they're cool. With Rey, you spend the entire first act of the movie learning that she's been scavenging and fixing ships for most of her life, so when she yanks off a piece and shit doesn't explode, you go, oh, okay, that's her skills in action.
Girl knows her stuff.
I like how little exposition was given for Rey, and even that is too much according to this video. Fucking hell.
Action movie protagonists are always swaggering. They're always doing dramatic shit and walking out of it like, yeah, I'm the fucking best, what of it? That's why they're all just too cool to look at explosions.
Yes, action heroes. Pure action heroes. Also, John McClane was losing to the Colonel on the wing just before this, by the way.
The main crux of my complaint is that they don't marry Sue hard enough. In Star Wars discourse, people were saying, oh, Rey's a Mary Sue, but Anakin isn't. No, Anakin is a total Mary Sue. So is Luke. So is Starkiller.
No, they are not. And Starkiller is in a video game that's not canon. Again, the conflation here is astounding.
Because being a Mary Sue means you're a fucking badass, and these are action stories, so you have to be. People will claim they hate Mary Sues because it's a snarl word on the internet for teenage girls having fun. But take that term out of the equation, it's clear people don't hate them as much as they claim they do. If anything, they love them. Look at all those people calling Darth Vader a force of nature.
Not again. Darth Vader is the villain, so yes, he is a force of nature. And again, a Mary Sue is not a good thing. Please stop.
I want to see more Mary Sues. I want to see a cocky little stinker show up, wreck everything, look fucking majestic while doing it. Who the fuck asks for serious character work in an action movie?
I want good character work in my action movie. Damn. Is this where we are now? Now, I will do a solid favor. I could just end the video here. But instead I'll be nice. I will provide an example of the kick-ass action heroine, and we can discuss what makes her work compared to this garbage. I mean, come on. You knew who it was going to be. The bride from Kill Bill, in my opinion, is not only the greatest action heroine I've ever seen, point blank, she's one of the best action protagonists of all time. Spoilers ahead, by the way. But it's not just her. This story is filled with badass female characters. So how did Tarantino pull this off? It's called writing and directing. From the get-go, we get to know who she is. So when she tells us she's the world's #1 assassin, pretty quickly we see her in action and you understand why. To do this, you need properly choreographed action and an actress who can sell the role to you, which are both accomplished here. Just take a look at the intensity in this simple knife fight. Not only is the space utilized well, creating a sort of intimate and closed setting for the knife fight, the actresses easily sell the ferocity you would expect the world's top assassins to have. But for the bride, it's not a simple walk in the park. She constantly struggles, takes injuries, yet still perseveres, finds solutions, and ultimately triumphs. So, when, finally, the swagger moment approaches, it's that much more satisfying. And on top of this, we still get to see her training. I mean, come on! And this was done back in 2003. What excuse do those working today have? At this point, we have been receiving an avalanche of female action films, with studios eager to cash in on the trend and an army of directors, writers, and producers eager to virtue signal about the projects they're involved in. Not only making films, but getting to virtue signal about how important the film is in the larger cultural context. But only a small percent of these films land, and an even smaller amount will stand the test of time. Because at the end of the day, so long as they continue to deliver the type of character that this video and many others are calling for, they will continue to fail. And as they continue to fail, many will look back to the same characters we always have, with progress at an absolute standstill. Thanks for watching.